We have all the panelists here, so I think we can start now. A very good morning to all. I welcome you all to today's webinar, which is on cage fish farming, prospects of bilateral cooperation between India and Bangladesh. Now, this webinar is being organized under the regional program Transboundary Rivers of South Asia, which is supported by the Swedish government and implemented by Oxfam. We have a very eminent list of panelists for today's webinar, which include representatives from government, from scientific institutions like Center for Environmental and Geographic Information Services, Bangladesh, and renowned academician from West Bengal University of Animal Science, Mr. Joydeep Gupta of the Third Pole. So the objective of today's webinar is to explore the prospects of the cage fish farming practices, for both policies and practices in India and Bangladesh, and to see how marginalized communities, particularly women, can benefit from those practices. And the sense of bilateral cooperation is largely for sharing knowledge and success stories from India and Bangladesh, so that both countries can learn from each other. As part of TROSA, CUTS has undertaken a study in state of Assam and also in Bangladesh. The Bangladesh part, the literature review was done because we couldn't go to field due to the COVID-19 situation, which will be done in the coming months. So our team members, Mr. Saurabh Kumar and Srijata Dev, both of them will be giving a brief presentation of the study undertaken, following which we will hear the reflection of the panelists on the presentation. Now, to begin with, let me invite Mr. Jyotiraj Patra, Project Manager, Transboundary Rivers of South Asia, to give his opening remarks. Over to you, Raj.
Thanks, Beena. Good afternoon, good morning, colleagues. And at the very outset, I would like to congratulate CUTS for convening this stakeholder consultation. While the focus, as I understand from the flyer, is more on economic prospects and the scope for bilateral cooperation on cage fish farming, I would like to highlight some of the critical social and environmental issues that we need to take into account so that cage fish farming and related initiatives are more inclusive and sustainable. So as part of this, I would like to focus on three key aspects. The first is inclusion. The second one is more on innovation, and the third one is integration. To begin with, why inclusion very important, as Pina, you already pointed out, focusing particularly on the livelihood and more so for the women communities. As we know, many of the small-scale fishers are engaged in traditional aquaculture. It is critical to ensure any new cage fish farming initiatives and related investments are more inclusive. Because an inclusive system takes into account the existing rights of the communities, including those from indigenous groups to wetlands and rivers and other ecosystem services, which are vital for fisheries. One thing we need to take into account there are apprehensions in many sections that such big investments or infrastructure projects, particularly around cage fish farming, if communities' rights and livelihood options are not taken into account, this could gradually lead to privatization of natural resources like freshwater bodies, rivers and lakes, and subsequent marginalization of these communities who have been dependent on these wetlands for their survival and livelihood. The second important aspect related to inclusion is the investment technologies and market opportunities offer many livelihood opportunities, but it should also ensure that communities are able to meaningfully participate in the decision-making process on cage fish farming. And in addition to their participation, it is important that the cage fish farming initiatives, either in India, Bangladesh, or any kind of bilateral investments and initiatives, also takes into account other human rights of communities, such as right to food, decent work, and also ensure that those are considered and offered while planning these investments. There are good practices on such inclusive and human-centered aquaculture systems, and As part of this consultation and follow-up work, we should look at these to understand the approach. Gender, as Bina, you already highlighted, role of women and other gender minorities are very critical in terms of ensuring they are able to benefit as investors, entrepreneurs, and workers across the cage fisheries value chain. Moving on to the second aspect, I think just wanted to highlight the scope on innovation. I think the scope for innovation, as we are just discussing this, the cage fish farming, it's immense. Cage fish farming and aquaculture involves a lot of technological and financial inputs, such as design of fish cage, mostly a steel and high density polyethylene, propylene, energy input, fish feed, etc. And I think Saurabh is going to highlight some of those. But one thing I would like to highlight is the opportunity for innovation. For example, clean sources of energy, such as solar, in the operation of these systems, rather than relying on diesel and other sources of energy. The second could be waste recycling, because one of the key concerns around such farming systems is around waste that is unmanaged and also released to the nearby aquatic system, causing pollution, including transboundary pollution in cases where you are talking about such systems being put in transboundary rivers. So I think waste recycling and resource recovery is another area where there could be a lot of innovation, particularly reducing the ways of use of plastics and looking for alternatives. The other important innovation I'd like to highlight, because financing is very key for these initiatives. So there is the scope for financing in innovation in financing, particularly related to microfinance and insurance, which is available and accessible for small producers to mitigate various risks in cage fish farming. Certification of sustainably harvested fish could be another innovation, the market innovation, enabling more market opportunities and in turn benefiting the fish farmers and cooperatives. There are many other technological innovations. I think colleagues from SEGIS and Bangladesh will also highlight particularly those around machine learning that are being effectively used to monitor such aquaculture's production, but also the value chain performance, including transparency and traceability across the cage fish value chain. So there is definitely more scope on innovation. The third important aspect, as we are talking about bilateral cooperation, I would like to highlight is that of integration. Integrating cage fish farming as part of larger policy initiatives, in my opinion, like employment generation, food and nutrition security, natural resources management, climate change, and private sector investments at the local, national, and bilateral levels will help mobilize more investments and political support. For example, the ongoing global food systems dialogue is a great opportunity to further highlight the role of sustainable fisheries in our food systems. The second opportunities I saw is through the framework agreement on cooperation for development between India and Bangladesh, which was signed in September 2021. Although fisheries is not explicitly mentioned as an area of cooperation, but Article 6 and 7, which are on climate change adaptation and sub-regional cooperation in the power sector, water resources management and physical connectivity, environment and sustainable development, could be leveraged for bilateral initiatives on sustainable aquaculture. Fisheries, as we know, is also one of the priority cooperation sector in BIMSTEC, the Bay of Bengal initiative for multi-sectoral technical and economic cooperation. So there is also opportunities through that sub-regional cooperation mechanism. And most importantly, as we know, marine and freshwater aquatic ecosystems are highly vulnerable to climate change impacts, with implications for food security and the livelihoods of communities dependent on fish and aquaculture. And as because we are preparing for COP26, I think this is also a good opportunity for CURTS and partners and Oxfam to use this opportunity to highlight the role for more investment, the role for more adaptation support in the fisheries sector. So I think with these three important elements of inclusion, innovation and integration, I would like to emphasize that there is definitely opportunities for bilateral cooperation and more investment in cage fish farming, but we need to take these things into account when initiating any kind of planning or any kind of investments in this sector. With this, I would like to thank Kurtz and Bina, and I look forward to a very productive consultation and follow-up action on this. Thanks, Bina.
Thank you, Raj, for highlighting those three I's: inclusiveness, integration, and innovation. And as you rightly said, mostly cage fish farming is being practiced in common property resources, and popularizing these kind of practices may lead to privatization of these kind of common water bodies, and that is something we need to be cautious about. Now, I'm sure that today's discussion will throw light much more on these aspects, all the three aspects which you have highlighted, because cage fish farming requires initial capital investment, which is, it's quite high, though the labor cost is cheap for cage fish farming. Now, let's hear the presentation from Saurabh and Srijata. Are you ready with your presentation? Yeah.
Yeah. Swiptish, can you share the presentation?
Okay. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Veena ji. First of all, I would like to thank TROSA program and Oxfam team for supporting us to conduct this study. I would also like to thank our late colleague Shri Arun Roy, who was guiding us in this study and who accompanied in the field visits, but during the COVID-19 he passed away. Thanks are also due to Mr. Chandan Chetri and Directorate of Fisheries in Assam, who have assisted us in field visits, as well as provided cooperation at every step of the study. Next slide, please. The goal of the TROSA program is reduce poverty and marginalization of vulnerable river basin communities through increased access to and control over riverine water resources on which their livelihood depends. While the objective of this particular study was improve policies and practices of private sector and other actors to respect the rights of river basin communities to water resources. And the outcome under this program was practices of private sector respect community access to water resources, actively contributing to reduce conflict, while output would be private sector adhering to responsible business guidelines and compliances, including human rights. The methodology we adopted for this study include the literature review of published sources, secondary data collection from online sources and web portals, field visits to Bongaigaon and Nagaon districts in Assam, where we interacted with a number of stakeholders, including government officials, fishermen, etc. The cage fish farming culture is fish farming is the technology of rearing fish from fry to fingerling size to marketable size, while the fish is captive in an enclosed space that maintains free flow of water between the cages and the surrounding water body. Advantages are it provides an alternate income source to fishermen, simplified cultural practices, simplified harvesting. It is also cost effective, resources use flexibility, resources use flexibility, multi-use resources, and low initial investment if we compare it with some of the other high-tech fish culture practices. Constants are poorly positioned cages can disrupt navigation or diminish the scenic value of the reservoir, particularly if it is implemented in the river. Poorly placed cages may alter current flow and worsen the sedimentation. Cages with inappropriate intensity may lead to eutrophication owing to the spillover of unconsumed fish feed and fish waste to the surrounding environment. Thank you. Next slide. Concerns related to fish are fish feed must be nutritionally adequate and fresh. Fish diseases are a common problem in cage fish farming. Wild fishes, turtles, and fish-eating birds can harm the cage fish unless proper precautions are taken. Water quality is necessary for efficient cage culture, particularly low dissolved oxygen are common in cage culture. Vandalism and poaching poses severe challenges to the cage culture. It is far from the village. Socioeconomic concerns are large reservoirs are usually owned by the government and fishing activities are conducted in these reservoirs, considering these water body as common property. Resources with free access, fishes produced in these reservoirs are thus considered natural resources. Local fishing community assume primary right over these. Thus, cage culture can thus adversely impact the interest of local fishermen by restricting their access to the fishing ground, obstructing their pathways and contributing to declining fish catch. Thus, it becomes imperative to ensure that the expansion of cage culture does not impair the livelihood and income of local communities. Thank you. Next slide, please. Cage fish culture in Assam. Fish occupies an important place in the lives of people of the state, and fish farming has been one of the common activity in rural areas. Thus, fisheries sector is considered as an important economic activity in the socio-economic context of the state of Assam. Horizontal expansion in the fisheries sector is being accomplished through creation of new pond and reclamation and renovation of existing areas, followed by fish culture. Vertical expansion is given through productivity enhancement with adoption of improved and advanced culture practices and better and sustainable management practices. We visited two sites of the cage fish farming projects, which are at the pilot stage by the Directorate of Fisheries in Assam. One is at the Koliabor. Under the Chief Minister Samagra Gramya Unnayan Yojana (CMSGUY), the State Fishery Department has installed floating fish tank with the help of fiber reinforcement plastic floating modular units. Each modular tank is of the size of 18 to 6 m. The required floating modular buoys have been procured from Chhattisgarh, where in the state of Chhattisgarh the practice is already being implemented. Fish species which are produced here are pangash, kawai, rohu, katla, java, chitol, puti. The State Fishery Department is planning to set up a fish feed plant in Koliabor district and Koliabor. It was noticed that several wheels exist in Koliabor, Nagaon, Golpara, Bongaigaon districts, among others. The excreta of the fish are removed from the net just by shaking the net. However, if fine mesh nets are used, the bottom shell need scrapping. Next slide, please. The another site which we visited was in Abhyapuri, installed by the Director of Fisheries, Government of Assam. This project was the state's first trial on the cage fish farming. The funding of the project was the total cost was around 21 lakh, and Government of Assam provided around 14 lakh as a subsidy, while the rest was spent by the society which is undertaking the work. Benefits identified by the for the state: the practice is not very labor intensive, thus reduced labor cost. Further, it has huge scope for women engagement in the practice, given its simplified procedure, particularly if it is given to a women's society or a local community body. Sequential harvesting is possible. All the activities and tasks can be pre-planned. Different species of fish can be cultivated in different cages, as the officials of Director of Fisheries regularly visit these farms. Intense farming of fish is possible. For instance, during trial, 8,000 fishlings were cultivated in a dedicated 4 into 4 square meter cage. There was only one constraint identified by the by us. This project being in an initially still uses FRV modular floats. This is expensive. This can be improvised, and local material can be used as a float and nets, leading to further reduction in the capital cost. Thank you. Next slide, please. So these are the pictures of Koliabor cage fish farming project, where you can see that fish ponds are floating fish ponds are there. The third picture includes official from the fisheries department, as well as the person who is managing this fish farm. Next slide, please. This is the pictures of Abhyapuri cage fish farm, where you can see that fishes are produced in these type of cages, and when you pull these, the fish comes upward. Thank you. Next slide, please. And now I would like to hand over the presentation to my colleague Shrijata.
Thank you, Saurabh. As Veena ma'am mentioned earlier, because of the coronavirus pandemic, we could not undertake field visits in Bangladesh. Thus, these insights have been gathered from secondary research. First of all, Bangladesh is a country well endowed with rivers and other water resources. Thus, utilizing caged fish culture in the country is imperative. So cage fish culture in Bangladesh was started somewhere in the 1970s. Over the years, several experiments by the Bangladesh Agricultural University and the Bangladesh Fisheries Research Institute were conducted for the successful implementation of the culture in the country. The locations that this practice is prevalent is mostly in the Narsingdi district and the Chandpur district. And the fish species tilapia is widely produced using cage culture. Tilapia cage culture is one of the most popular aquaculture practices that is used in Chandpur area. This is done to better utilize the inland open water river like the river Dakatia. At present, 3,500 cages are in operation in Chandpur along the Dakatia river, and around 500 cages are in Lakshmipur along the Meghna river. These are some common challenges that have been identified from our field visits in Assam and our desk research in Bangladesh. So firstly, there is very limited documentation, information and data available associated with the aspects of inland water bodies. There are also challenges and conflicts pertaining to ownership rights of the water resources as the culture is practiced in common property resources. There is a problem of theft in cage fish culture, particularly in the areas where stock concentration is a lot. Also, quality fish feed and other raw material, the prices of these raw material and quality fish feed is increasing. This makes adopting cage fish culture for the small and landless farmers very difficult. There have also been concerns regarding the deterioration of the water quality of the rivers and ponds. This is particularly concerning in rivers with low depth and slow flow of water. Additionally, river water is likely to be polluted if chemical feed is used and also if the fish waste is not managed properly. Fish pond owners and cage operators often face the threat of poaching. Lastly, there is very less awareness about the benefits, costs, and the utilization of the cage culture. There is lack of proper training to the farmers, and there is also no grievance redressal, and there is also no information about it. These are some recommendations. Improvement in infrastructural facilities such as hatcheries, soil and water testing laboratories, diagnostic facilities to regularly monitor fish diseases, cold storages and transportation facilities are required. There is a need to conduct awareness generation measures, monitor proper information dissemination, and conduct capacity building programs for local communities and fishermen so that they can adopt the culture. We need to establish R&D centers with adequate facilities at key places. The existing self-help groups, non-government groups, and local women groups should be encouraged to take fishery actively as one of the key activity by providing financial support. Leasing of ponds to the self-help groups and NGOs and other women groups is important. Conducting cage fishing and regular fishing collectively to empower collaborations will reduce conflicts and increase training and advertisement programs. The community should be encouraged to own the cage as a common property, and they should be the primary beneficiaries of this technology, even if the culture is being practiced in a PPP manner. Conflict management and grievance redressal cells should be established to address complaint. Digitalization of data and monitoring through modern technology should be encouraged, and easy and cheap availability of fish feed and other raw materials should be ensured. Thank you.
Thank you, Saurabh and Srijata, for the presentation. Now let us hear from Mr. Mohammad Mukhtar Zaman he's Senior Specialist, Center for Environmental Geographic Information Services. First of all, I would like to thank you, sir, for confirming your participation in a short notice in today's webinar. We would like to hear your quick reflections on the presentations done by our colleagues, and also the status of cagefish farming in Bangladesh. As highlighted in the presentation, it's mostly practiced in close water bodies in India, whereas in Bangladesh, the literature shows that it is even practiced in river systems. So we would like to hear from you how this does it exclude small players, small fisher folks when it comes to fishing rights? And is there any issue of pollution, especially pollution of river ecosystem, and any challenges with the ongoing navigation practices, because this is done in the flowing river systems? Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Dina. I am Mohammad Mukhtar Jaman from CJ, Center for Environmental and Geographic Information Services. So do you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Just a moment, please. Sorry. Firstly, I want to highlight some statistics in the case culture in Bangladesh. Then I will let you know your queries answers. So in Bangladesh, case culture, rightly pointed, it is started in 1970. But it's a very preliminary stage and experimental stage, you can say. So different experiments have been conducted by line agencies and Department of Fisheries and the research agency like Bangladesh Fisheries Research Institute, and in different parts of the rivers and different parts of the lakes they have used, but sometimes they have failed, and in some cases they have achieved the goal. And finally, in 1995, the case culture, it's CARE Bangladesh has taken an initiative to expand the case culture, case aquaculture, and now it is the present condition. If you see, his culture area now 176,000 cubic meter area. So you can say in hectares, 17.6 hectares area in Bangladesh. It is case culture activities going on, and nearly 10,000 cages are operating in Bangladesh in different rivers. So mostly in Bangladesh, flowing waters has been selected because in the flowing water, the case culture is better, perform better in terms of pollution, in terms of quality fish. So nowadays it is also doing in the lakes also. So in Bangladesh, it is already the harness production is 3,800 metric ton in 2018, and in the last year it is in case of area, it has been increased 0.47 cubic meter of area. That is almost 0.47 cubic meter area has been increased. That is a big increase. And production progression, if you see, 279 metric ton has been increased from the last 2017. So what I am now I want to tell that is, it is increasing day by day. So I will later stages I will show the now you can see the species. So and production trend. So major species, the target species in Bangladesh is Nile tilapia and climbing parts. That is locally we call it koi mas, and catfish, and some prawn also practicing. So other fish also practicing, that is small catfish like tangra. These also practicing, pabda practicing. So if you see the trend from 2014 to 2018, it was progressing the number of, in terms of number of cases, also in terms of production. Though productivity is in some cases it is fluctuating, but it is increasing trend. So if we see our division wise, we have 8 divisions, and division wise we have seen the Chattogram division is the highest production achieves, and that means the colleague just earlier, she was telling in the Chatpur area and Noshindi area, that is doing better in the case culture practice. Yes, she is right. The Dakatia River and the Meghna River, it is practicing well. In other rivers also, case culture is boosting up. So it's a huge contribution. It is gaining the contribution to the national fish production. It is now 0.09% contribution to the national production, and we have estimated in from the trend in 2030 it may be 0.18, and in 2050 it may be 0.32. So this percentage, if it is gained, then it will be a huge contribution to the national production, and we can serve the population whatever will be in the 2050. So this is in a nutshell the Bangladesh condition. So now I'm coming to question, that is actually in Bangladesh, what is the major problem? Major problem is the policy. So still Bangladesh has no policy on the case culture, no act on the case culture. You know, the river is the common properties. It is it belongs to several ministries. So water in terms of water, it belongs to Water Resources Ministry. In terms of land, it is belong to Land Ministry. In terms of navigation, it is under Shipping Ministry. So there is a huge, there is a large number of stakeholders over there. So there should be a policy that is yet not been done. So, but the respective agency, they are working on it, and they have they are drafting the policy guideline, and hopefully it will be coming soon, as it has a great potential, because the marginalized people, they are coming forward with this initiative, because it's a you know our in our country villages are nearby the river, so they are they are taking the advantage of the river by doing this, and the more advantage is the women can be involved in this practice. That is another advantage. So it's since it is a low level intensive, so it's a huge potential. Another thing is, you know, in our country, the upstream flow is decreasing day by day. So there is another big problem. So upstream flow is, since it is declining, so flowing river flow velocity is declining. So when we are going to do the case culture practice in the river, and flowing water is expected, but we are not getting, and it is creating some problems in the water in terms of pollution, eutrophication, because residual food is creating the eutrophication, dissolved oxygen losses. These sorts of things majorly happen, and also the disease condition. So if the water flow, if you can do the in the flowing water, then it would be better in terms of the environmental congeniality. So this is the major issues, and also food. So, in last 2011 until 2011, the food was the major problem for the shrimp, for the case culture. The appropriate feed is a pellet feed, that is a floating feed, but it should be nutritional adequate. But that was the big problem in Bangladesh, but it is now resolving the issues, and now it's, different companies are coming with these facilities. This is in a nutshell. So government is losing revenues if policy issues is not coming, and private ownership, they are not confident enough, because it's a common properties, everybody has the right. So there's sometimes the fishing people, they want to establish their rights, because this was the fishing ground earlier. Now it is gone under the case culture. So there is a conflict of interest over there. This is the in a nutshell in the Bangladesh condition. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mukhtar, for pointing out the key issues very briefly. So I understand that a draft policy is already there. Is it available in the public domain for us to take a look, or is the government still finalizing?
Not yet. It is still under their activity. It is not disclosed yet. Okay, just historical information we are getting.
Okay, so since you said that lot many stakeholders are involved in this process, because river is used for multiple purposes, and was there any consultative process while drafting this policy, or?
They are doing this. They are doing this, and of course they will consult the respective ministries who are really really posing their stakes on the river, on the water bodies. So they are in the process of consultation.
All right. Thank you, sir. So now let us hear from Mr. Chandan Chetri, State Nodal Officer, Directorate of Fisheries, Government of Assam. So Chandan Chetri has actually supported our fieldwork in Assam as well. So now we have heard from the Bangladesh side that cage fish farming is mostly practiced in flowing river system, and Mr. Mukhtar has already highlighted that such practices in flowing river systems are much more productive, whereas in Assam we are following it in the closed water bodies. So we would like to hear your experiences from field in this regard, and also, like Mr. Mukhtar was saying, there is a draft policy coming up in Bangladesh. So is there any guideline currently with the state government to be followed in the case of cage fish farming? Over to you.
Good morning. Greetings to everyone. Thank you, Oxfam and Kutch International for inviting me in this webinar. Assam is basically, as your team has already visited and seen the case culture in 2 districts. If we see Assam as a whole, we have almost 2.44 lakh hectares of fisheries resources available in our country, in our state. Of that, the major part is bill fisheries. If we say wetland, total of that area, it's about 1 lakh hectare, more than 1 lakh hectare. Of course, bill fisheries of that would be around 62,000 hectares water bodies. So that is the mainstay of Assam fisheries sector. Along with the pond aquaculture, already it is more than 77,000 hectares of pond aquaculture is being practiced, where semi-intensive aquaculture in certain areas, even intensive fish farming is also being taken up nowadays. So we have a major, 2 major river sources here in Assam. That is, one is Brahmaputra and another one is Barak. Almost 53 tributaries flowing across the state of around 4820 kilometers of total area, covering, encompassing almost 4820 kilometers. So the last year's 2019-20, the statistics of our fish production of the state was around 3.73 lakh metric tons, which is almost near to our attaining self-sufficiency. Our requirement is as per 12 kg per capita consumption would be around like 3.93, considering the population of the state of Assam. And in fish feed production, we are already, self-sufficient as far as fry stage is concerned. Though the stocking material in the form of fingerling is still, we are not very self-sufficient, because the reason is also that the consumption and the export of the to other states, fish feed flowing to other states, and consumption in the form of table fish here is one of the reason for having a constraint of getting fish seed in the form of advanced fingerling. We have around 3.51 lakh numbers of active fishermen in the state, of which as I had heard about insurance in the beginning, about importance of having insurance for our fishermen. I would be very happy to let all the allied members here to know one thing, that we have already been able to insure almost 1.5 lakh out of that total population. So we are targeting 3.51 shortly. Probably we'll do that with the assistance from Pradhan Mantri Bima Yojana that is being launched here in our distinct country. So under that, our fishermen's insurance is being covered. Around, if we say as per Government of India report, then we have around casual, part-time and others. If we along with the active fishermen, we have around 25 lakhs of fishermen population in the state. So that's a huge number. So we have a lot of potential also as far as it is concerned. So in the form of cage culture in Assam, practice as far as research institutes and was, if you see that, then we can go back to 1977 only, when it was CIFRI had done it in Pitkai bill in Hojai area, with fixing of fixed bamboos of air-breathing fishes was done long back. Then in 1999 and 2000, these floating cages have been practiced one by CIFRI at Samaguri bill in Nagaon district was adopted, was done, and that was successful in the CIFRI had come up with results of it is possible in bill areas to rear fish up to fingerling stage very well growth, and then you can release it to the bill fisheries. But the major intervention in the form of a larger number of cage culture in these water bodies, which is one of the mainstay of our fishery resources of Assam, was with the launching of Chief Minister Samagra Gramya Unnayan Yojana, under which we have almost 38 batteries, each consisting of 10 cages in each battery, of around 380 cases was sanctioned, with almost 70% of subsidy in the form of subsidy, and remaining 30% was the party share for this, of which even the inputs was also supplied. Input was also, provision was made under CMSGY. So under such circumstances, we have been able to so far establish or install 28 batteries already in 28 districts. So rest are being again continued, going on. Apart from that, Government of India under Pradhan Mantri Matsya Sampada Yojana, we have like 150 cases sanctioned for the year 2021. So these are also under being installation at in various districts. So where we have like subsidy pattern of like 40%, 60% for the SC, ST and women candidates, and for our general category people, it is around 40% of subsidy is being this thing. So these are some of the interventions that we are looking at very in a positive way, which could be one of the like reason for like growth of cage fish culture in bills. We have, as I have already mentioned, we have two major river systems in Assam. We have not been able to do much in cage culture in rivers because the reason are varied, and we have ever studied the dynamics of our rivers, and like Brahmaputra. So a huge silt load, we all know it carries huge silt load and high erosion zone. Plus, it has got high underwater current. Brahmaputra is is the nature of Brahmaputra. So, but there are possibilities. There are places wherein we can select and we can like select the site where our cages can be installed in the loops, and like some shallow regions where these currents and silt load are less. So that is being emphasized in Pradhan Mantri Matsya Sampada Yojana, as well as in Chief Minister Samagra Grama Unnayan Yojana also. Because under CMSGY, the second phase has started. The first phase we had got 15 batteries of cages. Then we again got based on the success of that, we again got around 23 batteries of cages. So altogether 38 cages we have got sanctioned, and it is under the process of installation. As 28 already we have covered. So there is a huge possibility. Now under like cage installation, since people are not much aware of the thing here, so the government has also supported to for capacity building of the people. So the targeted numbers is around 10,000 people have been targeted. Out of that, we have already 1,415 numbers have been already trained up by College of Fisheries, Roha, Assam Agriculture University. So this in the phases wise it's going on. Probably shortly we will be building a workforce like with capacity building of those stakeholders who can contribute a lot like in the coming days in under cage fish farming. With the experience of implementation of these practices here, this with regards to like river cage farming, definitely there is a possibility we can learn from Bangladesh, because as we have already seen in many reports and this thing, we know how they are doing it in Dakatia River. So that could be one of the sharing informations and sharing experience sharing could help us in taking this cage cultures in rivers, the major rivers Brahmaputra and Barak in Assam. Issues like during our last experience, what I would like to just share with elite members here is like the modular cage has been mentioned, and it is a fact that the cage modular cages like SDP cages are quite a little bit costly, and this there can be some like alternate arrangement because there has been some experimental kind of thing in Assam where Brahmaputra is behaving in such a manner. We have got certain catchment areas where river gets the river water, monsoon water, it gets stagnant and accumulated for around like 3 to 4 months, which is seasonal. It exists as a seasonal bill, but the duration is very less. So I know one Mr. Jyotish Das, he was an engineering graduate who used to come from like this Sadir Khal area in this Kalain district of Kasar, where I was posted then. He had this bamboo and drum kind of thing, and he made that floating cage. like not floating it. Actually, he had to fix it. Otherwise, the current was too high. That again, the river, that runoff water goes to the Bangladesh, where there is a bordering Bangladesh area in Kalain, Kachar district. Where he had raised fingerling for 3 months, and like he could earn lot of money from that, because that water is nobody and everybody's water at that time, because there is a lot of fishing, and there's a kind of not a this is a boon kind of thing for all people, because it is inundated huge water area. Those areas, they call it hour in those areas. So where people go for fishing, so again, like see, coincidentally the ban period also falls at the same time when the fishing is banned. So this could be one of the alternate arrangement for the people with small assistance support, where they can rear fish in those areas, or fingerling, or in the form of fry, because the breeding season is also coincides with that, and that could be one of the alternate livelihood for them. So this has been tried, with bamboo, and even like here some using this PVC pipe and PVC drum, they are doing it. That we can see in Bangladesh a lot. Even in Vietnam, it is there. So I could see when the river in Vietnam, they are doing this culture. When I had visited that country, so such experiences and such informations could be shared with the people out here, which can be helpful. See, we need to really cut down the cost if we want to see the effectiveness of the any technology or interventions. That should also come with the that should not come with the cost. We need to think on that, so that how we can reduce the cost. That is most important. Now here in Assam, we have customized little with the case size, because what is happening that in India, mostly the case culture is taken up in the reservoir areas. We don't have reservoir here, so these bills are only reservoirs for Assam. But due to siltation over the period of this thing, and like a macrophyte growth and weed infestation, we get less depth. So what we did is 6. I would like to correct when one of the presentation there was a little mistake. It is not 8 meter. It is 6 meter by 4 meter into 2 meter. So that 4 meter of 96 cubic meter, what is prevalent in rest part of the India, that is being promoted by NFDB, National Fishery Development Board of Hyderabad, and the government of India. We had to customize it little bit, because the depth is little less in some of the bills, and we have made it little less depth of that this thing, and length and the width was the same. So such cases are being customized and even placed in the bills in Assam. So that is one thing. And another thing is species. Well, in the last experiences, what I would like to share with in Kachar district and in Nagaon district. Of course, the team hasn't visited the Kachar district here. Nagaon, of course, they have visited and shared the experience. In Kachar, what they have reported us is this Puntias is doing very well.
Mr. Chetri, sorry to interrupt you. If you can wrap up in 1 minute or so.
Yeah, ma'am. Yeah. Please. So this is the scenario in Assam. Now, some of the finance, particularly microfinance, as it was mentioned, I would like to just inform here that KCC has been launched in India by Government of India. This KCC under fishery has been given the agriculture sector. It was covered under agriculture sector only, but the KCC has been now extended to even fisheries farmer. So that microfinance could help, definitely help. We have a lot of KCC funding here in Assam under Government of India's program of covering maximum KCCs. We have done that, so that is always there. Apart from that, so many schemes are being implemented here in Assam, where the stakeholders and the communities of bill fisheries and cooperatives can take advantage and utilize the benefit out. So definitely, with this, I would like to conclude, because it's the time is not much. So any panelists can, if have questions, and then we can interact definitely. With this, I conclude. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chetri, for highlighting the cage fish practices that are being followed in Assam, about the schemes and other capacity building programs. I'm sure that more people, uh, if they indulge into such activities, would be helpful for their livelihood. As you rightly pointed out, this could also be an alternate livelihood opportunities for those people, especially during the ban period, because it synchronizes with the culture period for the fingerlings as well in cage fish farming. Now, let me move to Mr. Supratim Chaudhary, Associate Professor, West Bengal University of Animal and Fishery Sciences. So West Bengal is another riverine state, and now we would like to hear you on your thoughts on the prospects of cage fish farming in West Bengal. Over to you, sir.
Yeah, good morning, madam, and very good morning to all the panelists. Good morning, Chandan. How are you? So,
Good morning. Good morning.
yeah. So, I've been listening to a number of my previous speakers. So, I would like to cover all of them in a very brief way. I am very impressed with what Raj said about inclusion, innovation, and integration. See, this cage farming, this concept is primarily based on these three things, isn't it? Because we need inclusions, we need to include people, we need to look at those areas in the whole, like Gangetic, Brahmaputra basin, starting from the foothills of Himalayas to the Bay of Bengal. And what actually happened is cage culture came out probably because of the need, because of searching for an alternative employment. That is inclusion, including people who are going unemployed. Uh, so that is a big thing. Inclusion can be anything. It can be like what Chandan said very rightly. In Assam, it's a different topography. In West Bengal, it's a different topography. Now, this even on the other side of the border, if you look in Bangladesh, I believe that we share, both the countries share almost identical topography, starting from the South Himalayan part to the south. So cage culture is will be an innovation in each of these places. Like in Assam, you reduce the depth to 2 meters because you have siltation problem. That is not the case in western part of West Bengal, because there we have arid regions where there are reservoirs built by international labor organizations. There is no issues with siltation, so there you can go for 4 meter depth. So that is not a problem. Again, when you go further down, where the area where I am working on, that is the marine sector or the estuarine regions, again you face this problem of siltation, particularly in the Sundarban deltaic regions. So again, there you have to go for your own modifications. So that is innovation. That innovation is necessary in every step of the program. What Srijato said, like cage culture could be a problem for navigation and eutrophication. Yes, it can be a problem, but then you need innovations. See, what Raj also said, like certification can be an innovative part. See, now we know that people are looking for organic products. So why don't we go for like organic system of farming? Because cage culture offers us that benefit. You know, it is a closed system. Everything is under your control. Whatever you're feeding, so you can do that also. So you can go for a better certification programs. You can even get your product exported. Choose fishes. I think it is very important to choose rightly what species to be cultured. Go for high value fishes, because see, your investment is very high. HTP cages, what Chandan is rightly pointed out, it's very high. You need to innovate again on that issue. You choose fishes, you choose chitala sells at very high prices. Anubis sells very high prices. So you have to choose those fishes which are costly in the market. Maybe you can get it. You avoid your feed. Don't go for commercial feeds. No need, because we are not sure what is in there. You make your own. You give organic feed. So that is what we need to explore. So cage culture offers us this wide area of exploring. Regarding cage designs and all, see, what Sujato said, like it may be a back to look in a reservoir or area. No, it's not like that. You integrate the system with the tourism as well. Do it. See, in Purulia district, what we did, what the block development, Purulia district is in the western part of the state of West Bengal. It is an arid region. There in a block means community development block or tehsil is what we call in this part of the country. So there what the block development officer did is to integrate some cages, and what he wanted to promote is like people who are going there as tourists, they can actually have their own fish harvested by themselves from the cages. Now it is good because if you put a tourist and ask him, okay, you go and harvest a fish from a reservoir, it's very difficult. The whole day will sit along. You won't get a fish. But in a small cage, you ask him to sit on the side. If he cannot catch with the angle, give him a scoop net, he will get out a fish and he will be very happy. He will be ready to pay you any amount, like whatever you fix. So that type of innovation. So don't take it as a constraint to the scenic beauty of that place. You integrate it with the tourism part. So that will be very nice of it. Regarding the policies, yes, see, wherever there is civilization, wherever there is development, there will be a constraint to this type of culture systems because there is navigational waterway. If you go along the Sundarban Deltaic region and up, you will find Hooghly Matla estuary. Now, Hooghly is the entry point for two major ports in West Bengal, in India, I would say, so like Haldia and Kolkata. So you cannot do anything on that zone. So up till Kolkata, you won't find a single place to put the cages. It's not possible. It is only in regions where there is less development in terms of industries, in terms of navigations, only there you can promote this type of cultures. And remember, where there is no development, there is an unemployment problem. So you need to address to that. Another issue which is common to Bangladesh and India both is the problem of tropical cyclones in the Sundarban Deltaic region. So both the countries have a lot of things to do to rehabilitate the 7.5 million people inhabiting in these Sundarban Deltaic regions. So see, the recent past, in a couple of years' time, we have faced Bulbul, we had Amphan. It has devastated a lot of area. So what have we thought in terms of fisheries? See, cage culture could give us an alternate opportunity. See, both the countries have huge brackish water resources, huge estuarine resources. We can utilize that for development of fish cage culture, particularly. And as I said, yes, eutrophication is a problem in closed water systems, but in these estuarine systems where there is a tidal flow, you don't have a problem of eutrophication, but then you have mangroves, which is a very, very sensitive area, and so naturally you need to concentrate on your like how you are culturing. You need to reduce your carbon production. What we do is we are promoting the practice of cage culture in these estuarine belts, and we are including people, not individually, but we are trying to incorporate fish production groups and marine fishermen, because see, in our country we have rising prices of diesel. The trawlers cannot go out. Tropical cyclones are restricting the trawlers. We have banned seasons. We need to conserve hilsa. So where will this common fishermen go? They have to be given some alternative livelihood, and that is what we are doing. In our cages, we have solar system, we have solar panels to power our lights at night. We have increased the maize size. Why? Because we want that because see, Sundarban area is a natural place for so many species to breed. So we want them to enter into the cages so that my fish, what I'm culturing inside, for us it is sea bass, it is bhetki, what we call in Bengali, and Asian sea bass. So sea bass basically feeds on them. So that reduces my cost of commercial feeds. In fact, we don't use commercial feed at all because we are concerned with what the impact of that place, impact of this type of cultures on that place. We are doing that. Regarding another issue that Mukhtaruzaman has pointed out, it's the cage culture policy. Yes, cage culture policy, what I believe in Bangladesh, it is in the process of making, and in our country, in India, it's the same thing. It is already been drafted by Central Marine Fisheries Research Institute. And I think the draft policy is available because Veena Madam was asking about it. It is available, draft policy you can find. It is an open access thing. If you type marine cage policy by CMFRI, it will be available on Google. And with regard to bringing the whole fisheries policy of the country, it is in the process of being framed, because all of these individual, groups or the expert committees had been submitted their reports, and it is in the process of being made. And the initiative was taken by National Fisheries Development Board. I think Chandan can give more input on that part, on that issue, and I hope it is going to take shape. And so that is all I think I have to say. And I have to say that we need some support from the government side. And I believe in Assam what happened, CMSGY is an, I think is just an excellent initiative by the government to promote cage culture. So every government on either side of the border should take this initiative to promote this type of culture system. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chaudhary, for highlighting very pertinent points, especially, I guess another eye which has come up in your discussion is of improvisation, improvising the technology according to the situation, and integrating with tourism was another wonderful concept, and of course, organic product, because that itself creates a high value market for the product. Now let's hear from Ms. Shanta Soheli Moina. She's Project Officer, Center for Natural Resource Studies. CNRS is also a ROSA partner. And CNRS works on nature-based solutions, and they work with fisher folks in the Meghna Basin, especially the Har region, wetland management and all. So over to you, Shanta.
Thank you, Bhinadi. I hope you can listen to me.
Yeah.
So thank you for introducing me at first. So I was going to say that I work for rights for the fisher folk community and marginalized community. So what I think and my opinions might not be go along with the others. So I want to point out some pre-concerns for the cage culture fisheries in river. Okay. So number one point is there is some land right issues, right? Already Rajda has stated in the beginning. So the part where the cage culture will be conducted, that's a common pool resource. So if we want to privatize that common pool resource by doing cage culture, and then we are violating the rights of the fisher folk community, marginalized fisher folk community mainly, who fish there, right? So if the rights are violated, so this is not an approach that I agree on, we agree on. And secondly, if the place is critical for ecosystem or critical for any specific species, like that's then spot for a grazing of a specific fishy school, or an area where mother fishes come to release eggs, or that's then specific niche for some specific species. So we need an vivid and in-depth assessment before allocating or assigning that place for aquaculture or case culture, if I want to focus on today's topic. And thirdly, that if the place is allocated for fish culture, so then we need to look into for whom the allocation goes, right? Uh, I hear that it is being said that in the ban period, fisher folk community can be involved in the case culture system, but I'm not sure actually that who are we targeting for involving in the case culture, and the ban period directly affect the marginalized fisher folk community. So I am not clear about that who are we going to target for. Also, the is the most marginalized community of the riverine place, or the place we want to face culture. Are they getting priority here, or the business owners? And also, what are the sources for the capital for this case culture? Then it comes to the economic value. So how the economic value is being measured in this case, is the project is subsidized or not. If it is subsidized, then it is not something that I agree on, because it will portray to me like that the business is not profitable enough by itself, and for that it is subsidized to make it somewhat profitable by force. And if subsidy come that for our national budget, right? So everyone has the right or the share on this. So there are already many aquaculture in the country. So I don't need our river to brought into this culture system. And then if it is not subsidized, so the all the other things I mentioned before, if all the things go positive, then it comes to the aftermath concern. Biofouling is a big risk for the place, so far I understand, and there are more to the water quality composition changes in macrofauna or microflora, both in the benthic and the pelagic. These all needs to be researched beforehand in a manner that is globally accepted. uh, you see that if any disease spreads out from that, or any genetically engineered species invade in the river from the cage culture, there is a high risk of ecological disaster. Like the if the place is out of any sort of land rights, the invasive species can spread out to other place where the land right is a concern. So this will result in the harm in the ecosystem and the community. So this is the vast risk that cannot be removed without extensive safeguarding, which is a main concern and an important part of the ecoculture, so far I understand. So all these things indicate, and in my opinion, that case culture in river should not be promoted. You see, the monitoring system must have to be the bigger part, maybe even the bigger part than the piloting or the initiating investment. So because even after setting monitoring system, there is no guarantee that people will continue monitoring. This is our previous experience. We see that in the Howrah area, that the policy said that the whoever has the net has the rights to the water body. But this is not in the case in the reality. We see it in the sand mining problem in Chatpur area. We have a good policy on that, but this is not being implemented in the area, and that is become a huge threat to the local community. So, uh, so in a nutshell, if you can initiate this culture with huge safeguarding and from the associated high risk with it, and our previous experience that said, so I want to say that the culture should not be initiated in our river system, and I am not actually even convinced to initiate it in the natural system. So, and for the bilateral cooperation, I expect that the cooperation from the both countries should be on the resisting this sort of practices, no matter what big heads from world bosses say. Thank you, Vinati.
Thank you, Shanta, for sharing very pertinent issues related to rights, access, ecological sensitivity, and about about the place where it has to be done, as it to be followed in flowing river streams or other water bodies, and how can we ensure those safeguards which you were mentioning too. Um, that brings me to our the last panelist of today's discussion, Mr. Joydev Gupta, South Asia Director, the third pole. Uh, yeah, so you have been listening to today's discussion, and we would like to hear your reflections on the topic. Over to you.
Thanks, Veena, and good afternoon, everybody. Yes, I've been listening. I've had the opportunity to look at caged fish farms all over South Asia and elsewhere. So there are some points that I wish to bring up for discussion, basically. So I will not go into the details, but the points that I think need to be taken into account if we're going to talk about caged fish farming, apart from the points that Moina raised, and those are absolutely essential points to keep in mind. Apart from that, every time I watch a fish farm, my first response is that this place is overstocked. So then I go around asking fisheries experts, saying, "Tell me, how many cubic meters of fresh water should you have? How many of these particular species of fish?" And I invariably find that that particular farm has been overstocked by maybe as much as 200%. And this, we have seen the very serious impacts of this in coastal prawn farming. That if you overstock to this extent, it's going to lead to serious diseases among the fish, and then that in turn leads to serious overdosing with antibiotics. So the result is that the people who are actually consuming that fish, they end up having a whole load of antibiotics without understanding that they are having it. And then the fish die. And within a few years, your fish farm becomes unviable, economically unviable, because the fish die out rate is so high. So, given this, I think what Shupratim said sounds like a very good way out. That if we are going to do it, and I can see lots of reasons for doing this, then going for organic fish farming, which will simultaneously allow you to have optimal stocking and maximal pricing, so that the people who are doing the fish farming get the maximum benefit, to me seems the way out. Because if you don't do this, this is a matter of steadily diminishing economic returns, which we have seen in the case of prawn farms. Within about 2 decades, people have to completely abandon that area. There are other problems with fish farming, as we know, as we have also heard today from sages, that if you are going to do fish farming in flowing water, then you are going to get into all those problems about who owns that common property resource. So I don't see how those problems can be solved with a policy statement. Yes, on paper governments can come up with a policy statement, but implementing that kind of a policy all over the waterways of a delta country like Bangladesh, to me sounds like a pipe dream. I don't see that happening. What I see happening is a repeat of the prawn farming story. People overstocking, people adding more and more medicines in a desperate bid to keep their fish alive. This affecting the health of the average consumer, this affecting the economics of the fish farmer, and then the fish farmer being forced to abandon the whole business. So this is not the way to go. There is a sustainable way to go. There is a sustainable way to go. Fish farming today is basically a descendant of traditional fish farming in this part of the world. Every bit of pond farming, fish pond farming, is effectively caged farming, because the fish can't get out of the pond, right? Unless there's a flood or something, in which case they could get out of these farms as well. So we have had very sustainable, traditional, closed loop fish farming systems. All of us know this. I don't have to go into the details but that whole closed loop system of having the poultry cages above the pond, the fish using that as their feed, and then the cycle being repeated, because then you have the trash fish being used as poultry feed. And so that is a closed system that works. It is not being used, to the best of my knowledge, in so-called modern caged fish farms. And I've not understood why. I've asked this question. I've asked this question to people who are doing the caged fish farming, and I've repeatedly been told that they hadn't thought about it. Nobody had told them. They had got the subsidy just for doing this, so they're doing this. To me, that is not a good reason for doing something. We have both traditional knowledge and a very good system for all our fishers that we can and should promote. But if we do not take care of these issues, if we are completely taken up by the numbers game, that, oh, okay, we have given subsidies to so many lakhs, we have given so many crores in subsidies, and they're getting so many million tons of fish. If that is how we are going to count our successes, and unfortunately bureaucrats in both these countries and most countries of the world count their successes like this. If we continue to do that, then I'm sorry, caged fish farming is not going to be sustainable. Thank you.
Thank you for highlighting that, subsidy-driven initiatives would lead to deterioration of ecosystems. As you rightly pointed out, we need to build on our traditional knowledge and expertise and work out innovative solutions like, organic fish production, organic cage fish farming or so. And we also need to see that organic fish feed is available in the market, like even the feed available now, it's chemical. So a lot of things are to be taken care of in the supply chain when we are talking about organic fish production. But anyway, it was very wonderful discussion today. Let me invite Mr. Avinash Singh, Program Quality and Learning Specialist, ROSA, to give his concluding remarks. Over to you, Avinash.
Thank you, Veenaji, for giving me this opportunity to conclude this. I think this is a very wonderful session and very enriched and informative session, and I will not summarize it because it has a very enriched content, and that we all have heard from beginning from Raj's 3I concept to this to sustainable fish farming to the subsidy driven cage fish farming. So I think I will request each one of the participants to take a minute and think about two things that are kind of two takeaways from this interesting session, and one action that one action that they are going to share with the people they work with. And it will be there are some pros and cons that has been shared with the participants by the eminent speakers. So we are also waiting for the next part of the next part of the story, and consolidated report of the both side of the both side India and Bangladesh side of the status and the status of cages farming. So I would like to thank Raj for building the base of the discussion, and then Mohammed Muqtaruzaman, Senior Specialist, Center for Environment and Geographic Information Service, for their valuable remark, and the Chandan Chetri, State Nodal Officer, Directorate of Fisheries, Assam State, for sharing these for sharing all the schemes and kind of welfare schemes that are being provided to the community. And then Supratim Chaudhary, Assistant Professor, West Bengal University of Animal and Fishery Science. I really got a very good point. I really enjoyed your session of the sustainable farming, integrating cage fish farming with the tourism. So that is the area which I think which could be a kind of one takeaway from this session. Then. Jaideep Gupta of the South Asia Director, the third pole, and Special thanks to these two women leaders, Veena ji and Shanta Selimena, who lead this session, and Srijita Dev for giving that the three women leader in this webinar. I especially thank to the CUTS team, including Saurabh, for preparing for this all this hard work and preparing this nice presentation and sharing with us their research. So at the end, that with this pro and I think um, next, I think scope of improvement, with that scope of improvement, we hope that in the next publication or kind of the final publication, we will have some solid recommendation which can be sustainable, which can be a kind of which is not doing harm to the fisher folk community, and respecting the rights of the fisher folk community. So with that expectation, I am just closing my remark. Thanks everyone. If I miss anyone, sorry for that. And special thank you for them, and special thanks to all these participants for sparing time and listening all these eminent speakers and enjoying this very informative session. Thank you.
Thank you, Avinash. Thank you, all the speakers and participants, for your inputs in today's webinar. So I have, before closing, I just missed one question, which was, sent by Manovarda, which is, cage fish farming in Bangladesh is so growing, and there are some places where navigable channel is enclosed for fishing, and how to adjust fishing and navigation. So that is his question on this, and I request Mr. Mukhtar to respond on this. I understand that the policy is in the draft form, and Mr. Mukhtar, if you are there, would you like to respond on this?
Yes, thank you, Veena. So actually, I also raised the same thing. In the Bangladesh, it's a very small country, and people whatever they have to do within country, they have to use the resources as much as possible. So navigation along the river is very most of the rivers there is a navigation operating, and the river side the case culture is doing. It's very difficult to resolve these issues because there's some problem with this, and it is getting worsening because of increasing the case culture activities. So it's a really big problem. So policy, what can do? Policy in this regard, I think policy only can line up the allocate the land, allocate the site, allocate the area in the river side to resolve this issue. Otherwise, it's a very conflicting issues, and it is very difficult to resolve.
Veena ji, you are on mute.
Thank you for your response. Thank you all for your participation. I close
now, Veena,
yeah.
I want to say something about the Shanta, as she was telling. I agree with her because it's a very very important issues. The ecological disturbance to the river or other water bodies. So I think it needs a vigorous collaborative research with the neighboring countries who are really doing the case culture in a large scale. How to resolve this, particularly the pollution related problems. So this should be, we should consider these issues. So if India or some other countries in South Asia, we can have some collaborative research, I think there should be a solution. There will be a solution of these issues. And these case culture, Mr. Joydeep was telling, I also agree with him that this should not be sporadic, and this should be systematic, and it should not be much more than the whatever the land we have in ratio. So this is my proposal to all of you. Just there should be a collaborative research to resolve the problem. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah, collaborative research is definitely one area where we can look into, and that's why these kind of platforms, we create opportunities for experts from both ends to interact and see opportunities where they can collaborate in future. Thank you all, and thank you for your wonderful participation. Let me close today's webinar.